One evening, Jack's girlfriend casually asked him, "Have you ever hit a child?" Jack replied, "I have, and one time it was pretty serious." Curious, she pressed on. "What happened?" Jack began to explain. "Have you heard the advice that says if you see a sleepwalker, you should never wake them up? It's said that doing so might scare them, or even cause harm to yourself." His girlfriend shook her head. "No, is that really true?" Jack nodded. "Let me tell you what happened when I was in middle school. My little brother, who was only 10 at the time, suddenly started sleepwalking. It came out of nowhere. He didn't show any signs during the day. The scariest part was that he would sleepwalk in total darkness, and I would find him standing in front of the window at midnight, staring blankly outside. Every time it terrified me. Our parents took him to a doctor, but after several tests, the doctor found nothing physically wrong. The doctor suggested it could be related to stress from school. My brother was in an experimental class with top students, and the pressure was probably overwhelming for him. The doctor recommended easing his workload and told us never to wake him up during a sleepwalking episode. Apparently, the shock could cause long-lasting harm. Jack continued. So our family decided to let him roam around the house at night as long as he didn't leave. One night, I got up to use the bathroom and saw him walking in the living room. But something was different. His movements weren't like usual sleepwalking. He was hunched over, shuffling around like an old woman. It reminded me of an old matchmaker from our neighborhood who had passed away recently. I followed him, too scared to go to the bathroom. He stopped in front of my dad's dresser, opened it, and started putting on makeup. He smeared foundation unevenly and painted his lips bright red. It wasn't funny. It looked eerie. The scariest part? After he finished, he turned slowly toward me and grinned. It wasn't his normal smile. It was wide with drooping corners, like that old matchmaker's smile after a successful matchmaking. I couldn't take it anymore. I ran up to him and slapped him hard, shouting his name. That woke him up. He dropped to the floor, crying hysterically. His cries woke my parents, who were furious with me for breaking the doctor's rule. They scolded me and warned me never to do that again, but I was so scared I didn't care. After that, my brother started having nightmares and couldn't sleep properly for days. He even developed a fever. I felt guilty, but I couldn't help being terrified every time he sleepwalked. From then on, I avoided him at night. If I had to use the bathroom, I would just use a chamber pot in my room. Jack sighed, then continued. A few weeks later, it happened again. One night, while I was sleeping, I heard my bedroom door creak open. I woke up groggily and saw my brother standing in the doorway. This time, he wasn't just wandering around, he was heading straight for me. His movements were slow and deliberate. He wasn't wearing shoes, so his footsteps were completely silent. He stopped at the edge of my bed and just stood there, staring at me with empty, lifeless eyes. I froze, too scared to move. I thought if I ignored him, he would leave. So I pulled the blanket over my head and waited. After what felt like forever, the room was silent. I peeked out from under the blanket, thinking he had left, but his face was inches from mine, staring directly at me. Before I could react, his hands shot out and grabbed my neck. I panicked and instinctively hit him, waking him up. This time my parents saw how traumatized I was and decided to separate us. From then on, they made us sleep on different floors. Jack paused and then added, "Thankfully, as he grew older, the sleepwalking stopped. By the time he turned 12, it never happened again. To this day, our family avoids talking about those nights." After Jack finished the story, his girlfriend sat silently for a moment. Then she said, "Well, since we're being honest, I have something to confess too. I've also hit a child before. Do you think you can accept that?" Jack laughed nervously. "That's fine. I mean, I've hit one too, right? Who was it? A naughty kid in the neighborhood?" His girlfriend shook her head. "No, I mean my ex-boyfriend and I. We hit our child together." Jack's face turned pale. "Wait, what? You mean your ex couldn't handle a kid on his own, so he needed help? That's weak. Don't worry. I'll protect you from now on.